When we're talking about entrances, a lot of things that come to mind. Mainly two things. We're talking about boxing or UFC walkouts, or what I think a lot of people thinking, wrestling entrances. Very grand and explosive and just pretty much showing you who this person is by just the way they enter the scene. Well, when it comes to JJK, we're going a little bit different. I'm basically going to be breaking my 10 favorite entrances and introductions into a scene or into a arc. So not necessarily their debut, like the first time they entered into JJK, but more so how they entered a scenario or a fight or an encounter. Pretty sure you'll get the gist of it when we get into the top 10, but let's go ahead and not waste no time. I'll go ahead and show you with number 10. Number 10, I gotta go with Higuruma in the bathtub introduction. I think this is one of the best visually looking in the colonies. It's actually the best in my opinion in terms of just the build up for the character that's going to be introduced. Plus, this is one big shout out and a reference to definitely Sang Woo in his bathtub scene in the Squid Games, where it just really grabs the viewer, or the reader in this case, attention of just what is this guy doing. It's such an interesting and just a different approach into showing a character's mental state and just their kind of personality within one scene. Also, I like the build up to it of Megumi and Yuji both trying to find where Higuruma is at. That's who they want to meet and try to get this 100 points from. Plus the diversion of having both Amai and Remy. I like how Gege used both of them to kind of psych out the reader and which one is going to be introduced first. But when we finally see Higuruma and Yuji going down the steps into the theater, it just felt like one big movie scene. Higuruma ended up being somebody we didn't expect. We thought this lawyer guy was going to be someone that was super maniacal or someone that's super serious in his approach because of the first panel that we see of him and him having 100 points. He looks like he just killed somebody. But as we come over time and find out that he's not really in his good mental state, and just the downside of how the law is in Japan right now, the bathtub scene means even more because it feels like he's just sinking himself within his own failures of being a lawyer. For 9, I'm going with Toji stabbing Gojo for the first time, chapter 70. Now, Gojo, Geto, and Rika thinking their day was over and eventually getting stabbed from behind by Toji, where Gojo was at his lowest condition in the day. This is pretty much Gojo at his biggest fatigue. This is his lowest fatigue. And we already had the debut and introduction of Toji in the start of this arc, and we were just wondering like, when is he gonna pop up? Because the fact that this is Megumi's dad, everyone already is on like high heels. We're just wondering like, what is this guy capable of? What can he do? Does he have any techniques that we're looking forward to? Obviously he's just a savage with heavily restriction. But this is the first time as a reader and in the story of JJK where it genuinely felt like Gojo had no control of the situation in the fight. It felt like Toji in the first fight that they have just took over and was just in full control of a Gojo who at this point, even though he is not technically the strongest, he doesn't have his reverse curse technique yet. At this point, you can still make a good claim that Gojo was at least top 2 or 3 in the verse. And the fact that someone like Toji came in very quickly and in the most strategic way possible, taking down Gojo as a mere human technically, because he doesn't have anything that's superhuman other than his physical capabilities, was just impressive. And of course, this entrance led into pretty much Toji massacring and just leaving nothing but carnage all over the tomb of the star, killing Rika, taking out Geto, pretty much almost killing Gojo except for the little slip that he had. And that's one of the most iconic moments in the entire series, just seeing the team of Gojo and Geto just get completely washed by someone who doesn't have any curse energy at all. Number 8 might come as a surprise, is Kenjaku entering Tengen's barrier. Now, the wait for Kenjaku to make his move while everyone was having their battles in the Kaisen games was very anticipated, because this generally felt like all throughout the Kaisen games until chapter 202 that it was going super well for our side. Yuji got the 100 points, Yuta beat the Sendai colony, Megumi got his dub against Reggie and got some points as well, and Hakari beat Kashimo and got his 100 points. It felt like everything was just going good. It felt like nothing, we're just on the path of going after Kenjaku, freeing Gojo, all of that. But once chapter 202 hit and we get the Yuki lore and everything regarding her being a star plasma vessel and the ties between her and Tengen, and we get that panel where it transitions into Kenjaku entering the tomb of the star and Toso waiting for him, that was when everything shifted. This entrance was the beginning of Kenjaku taking over the reins of the story and had us just not only impressed, but left us questioning, how can we stop this guy? Not to mention, this is the same chapter that showed what Kenjaku was interested in when it came to creating a merger and what the merger could potentially look like. Chapter 202 is one of the best non-fighting chapters in JJK. And just everything that transpired after this is just insane to think about. We're just gonna make number 7 real quick. That's obviously Gojo returning. I have this for my 7 because just the fact that I was spoiled on it, I'm just gonna put it lower. But I mean, we already know what happened. 3-year long wait for us, the reader, that is. Carnage. That once Gojo was sealed, it was nothing but just mayhem and massacre that just happened to all of Japan. Just pretty much look at the Shibuya incident post him getting sealed. All that happened in just one day. And then look at what happened with the Culling Games. That happened in about 17 to 19 days almost. Yeah, it's been, with Gojo gone, pretty much everything has just gone to shit. And then the subtle teasers that we got and reminders of Gojo just throughout everything post Shibuya was really well done. And the final chapter build up into it, chef's kiss. Number 6 is the biggest, arguably the biggest plot twist in all of JJK, and probably almost one of at least all of New Gen. Sukuna using Enchain for the first time in chapter 212. This was another time where it felt like the main characters were controlling the narrative, taking control of the situation almost a little too good. In the current scenario, we thought we were going to say Sumiki, but that turned into another plot twist of Yorozu, reincarnated sorcerer, claiming Sumiki's body as her vessel. That was an incredible, shocking reveal. Everybody was shook by that, only to be even more caught off guard and shook just to find out that we were going to see Sukuna using Chain for the first time, taking advantage of Megumi's just hurt soul because of what he just seen, chokes out Hana and Angel, causing no damage, meaning he didn't break the binding vow, shoves his cursed finger down Megumi's mouth, having him eat it, and taking over Megumi's body, gaining the 10 shadows to a scared, shocked, and just overall just emotional Yuji. That's the best plot twist in all of JJK. There's nothing coming close, and just how quick things happen. It felt like almost all hope was gone once it happened. For my number 5, I'm actually going Awaken Maki climbing the stairs. This was chapter 149. Now, before we even got to all of it, I just feel like this entire stretch of Maki's arc was just beautifully done. The relationship we had between Maki and her mother and her father was shown off, as well as we got Mai's kind of introspective and her feelings and her emotions towards Maki and how she felt about everything that was transpiring and what she was trying to do for Maki. Completing Maki's heavenly restriction, which was bittersweet because we did get a powerful Maki, but it's like, damn, we feel bad for Maki because of her losing Mai. It felt like she lost her other half emotionally. But when we get Maki climbing up the stairs after Ogi thinks he died, which is, you know, Ogi's the worst father I've seen in a long time. She climbs up the stairs with a whole new aura. Feels like smoke is coming out of the damn tunnel. Now, if this is anything, this is definitely one of the most WWE type entries I've ever seen in JJK. But we see her new aura, and he gets a feeling, the same feeling he had when they first seen Toji for the first time. I knew it was over. Once I saw that, we all knew, oh, Maki is about to go crazy. And she did. She completely sliced off Ogi's head and then proceeded to just do a slaughter on the entire Zenin clan. I think this is a top 5 moment in terms of interest for me in debuting a new character or a moment. I just think this whole stretch of an arc is just one of Gege's best work. Before I'm going, Yuta approaching Yuji, Choso, and Naoya. Yuta's initial return to the manga was pretty hype. That whole chapter, pretty much just reintroducing Yuta to the series, was pretty dope. And when we were shown that he wanted to single-handedly carry out Yuji's execution, that was kind of like, alright, what's about to happen here? Because there's no way that Yuta is just evil all of a sudden, or he's working with the higher-ups. That would be kind of ridiculous. But when you throw in the aspect of Inumaki, that's his friend, and Sukuna hurt Inumaki, which Sukuna's in Yuji, for a second you almost believe him, and it's like, wow, how the heck is Yuji gonna go against Yuta? But obviously we know that Yuta isn't trying to kill Yuji per se. And Yuta's whole just demeanor is just way different than it was in Volume 0. Yuta, he has way more confidence. He still is a cheerful person for the most part, who wants to help people obviously, but he could just flip a switch and just take care of business, and he just seems like the most dangerous person you could ever come across. But when Yuji and Choso were first fighting Naoya, because Naoya popped up first, and Naoya was really pretty much showing off his speed against Yuji and Choso, and they were trying to figure out how to really counter him and just capture him, only to be blindsided by the craziest aura and curse energy they could feel. The fact that Yuji felt that this was similar to something like Gojo, and that all 3 of them unanimously knew we cannot touch that guy. That he's Something about him is just way different from everyone else. And that's because obviously he's a special grade sorcerer. But my favorite part of this whole just reintroduction to Yuta is the fact that when he jumps down from the building and destroys the ground, and everyone is just shook by how much power this guy has, even though he doesn't look physically imposing, was incredibly badass. For number 3, I got to go Toji invading Dagon's domain. Yeah, Toji's on this list twice. That's why he's the GOAT. Chapter 109. Nearing the climax of Dagon's fight, we got Nanami being mangled by fish spirits, Nobito losing an arm, Maki who she just was not ready for this fight at this level of a Jujutsu sorcerer. It just didn't work out, but she did try. She was trying her hardest, but they were just overwhelmed by Dagon's domain, and in my opinion, he could have finished them off if it wasn't for Megumi coming in clutch with the domain tug of war, creating an exit pass for leaving the domain and fighting an exhausted Dagon. The whole direction of this fight was almost perfect because of just how imposing Dagon felt. And Dagon was the biggest mystery out of all of the disaster curses because we just didn't know what he was capable of. He was this small octopus spirit, and once he turns into freaking Cthulhu, we're just like, oh, this thing is legit. But once we all think, oh, Megumi might be able to come in clutch, we're just gonna leave and fight an exhausted Dagon, because that's looking like what their plan was. They want to fight a weakened Dagon after his domain expansion. Toji's hands entering the panel, entering the domain, and everyone just confused as to what is happening. Toji literally changes the entire situation from we need to escape to just straight up destruction. And in the panel, they talk about how you can feel Toji's overwhelming intensity. That was almost an understatement. The minute Toji gets in, he grabs Playful Cloud from Maki, sharpens it up, and just turns Dagon into sushi. This was the most impressive display, in my opinion, against a special grade I've ever seen. Toji, if we're just listing him, I would say he's kind of almost like an in-between of a grade 1 and like a special grade. It's kind of hard to grade Maki and Toji. It's just hard, kind of. But the fact that Toji just went in and just destroyed Dagon and leaving that much of an impression, how can this not be in people's top 3 if we're talking about entrances into a JJK? This gotta be it. Number 2 is my guy. And I feel like this one is gonna be some people's number 1 or 2. It just depends on who you are. Hakari saving Panda. I mean, what else do I have to say? Not only is this incredibly epic, but it's very poetic. We got Panda's sad backstory regarding really Yaga and what's happening inside of him between his brother and his sister, and the course that's happening. They're pretty much disappearing and they're dying off, leaving just Panda. We also got the first fight of Kashimo against Panda, where Panda was just annihilated by Kashimo with his electricity and his explosive cursed energy off of that. And we just got to seeing just how Kashimo got his 200 points and why he's searching for Sukuna and why he's such a goddamn menace to just everything in this series. At this point, we thought it was over for Panda. We thought we were never going to see this thing ever again until the gambler shows up. The man whose fever burned hottest when he's helping others. Kenjaku comes in, saves the day in one of the most epic entrances in all of New Gen. Hakari's jackpot aura just looking like giant flames. He came in looking incredibly badass, and this is his second fight going into the series, so we were wondering what did he get from his jackpot in his fight with Charles, and obviously we know what he got. Becoming immortal, having infinite amount of curse energy, Kashimo senses just how much he has and gets instantly excited by the possibility of just how strong Hakari can challenge him. In which this led to one of the most iconic fights in JJK, and it's not even animated yet. One of the most iconic fights in manga in the new age in general, and greatness was made on that day. And for number 1, if you haven't noticed already, you probably already know what it is. Big brother Todo coming in and saving Yuji in the Shibuya incident arc, coming off of Nobara's presumed death against Mahito, who right now is just on a high, and he's getting stronger and better as his arc is progressing. Meanwhile, Yuji is at his lowest he's ever been, coming off of Sukuna's Rampage 2 and the Nobara death. Yuji just didn't have it in him to fight back in his soul, to fight back against Mahito and everything that he's been through in just these couple of hours. Not to mention the stacked deaths from Nanami and Junpei that Mahito is just putting in Yuji's face that look at what you've done, look at you, look at me, we're the same. This isn't me and you having some battle of ideals. This is a battle of war. This is a clash of truths. You and your fragile justice. You and me, Yuji, we're the same. We both kill without a second thought. And you just won't admit to what you are. You and me are exactly the same. And just as Mahito was looking like he was getting ready to deliver, looking like the final blow and slash Yuji apart, we see that clap. Mahito is not near Yuji, and the big brother is here, and he says the sound of the Gion Shoja bells and echoes the impermanence of all things. The color of the solid flowers reveals the truth that the prosperous must decline. However, we are the exception. That is one of the best moments in the entire series. It's the best entrance. Todo already had an epic entrance in the Goodwill arc and how he fought Hanami, but this just felt like everything that was built up from chapter 1, from everything built up from Mahito, from Yuji. Then you throw in the relationship between Yuji and Todo and what Yuji learned from Todo in the midst of Goodwill. This was perfection at its finest. I don't think it gets any better than this. Now, plus, of course, this led to the #1 fight in JJK, that this is the greatest fight in Jujutsu Kaisen that's yet to be topped, but this definitely led to legendary moments. That's my top 10 entrances for me in JJK. Let me know some of your favorites in the comment section down below. Don't forget to check out the second channel that has some other good stuff over there, including One Piece, because apparently a lot of people like me talking about One Piece. So go ahead and check that out over there. Go ahead and leave a like if you haven't already. Subscribe, of course. And I'll holler at y'all in the next one. Peace.